Being a tenant comes with a lot of restrictions and responsibilities. All of these are necessary to protect the landlord and the property that he is renting out to you. This landlord found himself in a bit of mess with his tenants and eventually got his cold revenge. Thomas Revolves is a landlord from France who planned to make a steady income by renting out his properties. Before we start, can we get this video to 1,000 likes? Please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Renting out, as we all know, brings a steady amount of money monthly, and that is a very sustainable source of income, even when the economy is in a bad place. Thomas had spent some time renovating an apartment so he could rent it out. He took care of everything from the plumbing to the paint on the walls. He even had the hardwood floors of the house rebuffed. He wanted the apartment to stand out as one that would make a good home for anyone who needed it. Thomas has been a landlord for a considerable amount of years. Before this particular apartment, he has bought, renovated, and rented out other apartments as well. All of his tenants in the past have been very good and decent people who kept his apartments in good condition. So when he met the new tenants for this apartment he had been working hard on, he had no idea that they would be the tenants from hell. Thomas eventually rented out his home to a young couple who had 3 children. They looked like a decent family who would be able to enjoy the place. The protocol for renting out a place was very simple. All he had to do was make the tenant sign a contract and they can move in immediately. Everything had been going smoothly until it was time for the first rent to be paid. Thomas checked his bank account a couple of times that week and found that no money came in from his tenants. Thomas decided to let it go and thought that maybe the family just forgot about the rental. However, weeks turned into months and there was no rent to be seen. Thomas started to get worried. He decided to give the apartment a call. No one was picking up. Thomas dialed the number a few times, but the tenants seemed to be off the radar. Thomas tried all that he can to communicate with the family. None of his letters, calls, and messages were returned. 14 months had passed when he decided to visit the apartment himself. While most landlords would start evicting tenants after just a few months of not paying the rent, Thomas had been very patient and waited for more than a year before a personal confrontation. When the landlord walked up to the door of the apartment, he noticed a small handwritten note on the door. The note said, "Ring this doorbell." Thomas was confused. Why wouldn't they hear the knocks on the door? It was not a huge place. Thomas started looking for the doorbell, and what he found instead shocked him. The doorbell had been pulled off from its socket. It looked like someone tried to wire it or tamper with it. What's going on? But Thomas's curiosity got the best of him, and he decided to press the doorbell. A disturbing and loud sound was produced. No one seemed to answer his knocks on the door or the disturbingly loud doorbell. Thomas concluded that nobody was home, so he decided to use his spare key to get inside the apartment. The moment the door opened, he immediately knew that something was wrong. The apartment was a mess. It looked like a dumpster with trash overflowing out of every corner and room. The horrible smell was overwhelming. How could a family with 3 young kids live this way? Isn't it illegal for someone to raise children in an environment that was as unhealthy and filthy as this one? The furniture he had provided for the apartment were destroyed and broken. Even the walls were not spared. There were holes in the drywall. The sight of what had happened to the apartment Thomas had renovated himself was heartbreaking. He decided to teach these tenants a lesson. Of course, Thomas was a reasonable man. He had to make sure that whatever plan he would execute, he would have the law by his side. The first thing he did was to take a lot of pictures for proof. Then, he sent those pictures to a lawyer and discussed what could be done about the situation. Thomas also asked some people to come over to the apartment and check it out so that they can be called in as witnesses. Thomas felt angry that the tenants had abandoned the apartment this way after paying no rent for more than a year. Thomas could not believe the state of the apartment that he had spent so much time renovating on. He could not help but take pictures of the trashed apartment and post them on Facebook. His post went viral in a few days. Everyone was shocked to see the before and after photos and could not believe that a family could live that way. What the tenants did to Revolve was inhumane. Thomas knew that this situation meant no space for negotiations. A family that can live this way and avoids paying rent for a year will not be a family that can be negotiated with. No matter what their motivations or reasons were for abandoning the apartment this way, Thomas knew that this was not a matter to settle in court. Thomas knew that the only way he can get some form of justice is to give them a taste of their own medicine. Thomas knew that he had to clean up the apartment himself and get the trash out. What happened in the apartment was too much for him to do, so he enlisted the help of a cleaning service. But he did not ask them to throw the trash out just yet. He just wanted everything out of the apartment and to have the apartment cleaned. He had plans for all the things in garbage the tenants had left behind. You must be wondering what Thomas did with all that trash the family left behind. It turned out he set them aside to be a part of his plans for revenge. Thomas hired a truck to keep all the garbage and other stuff the tenants left behind. When his apartment was finally cleared and cleaned, the landlord could not wait to work on his revenge. Thomas spent some time trying to track down the tenants. He had to find out where they were so that he can do his revenge. Soon enough, he found out that the family moved in a place not so far from the apartment, and he was able to get an address. Thomas drove to the location and had the garbage truck he rented behind him. He planned to make a surprise visit, where his ex-tenants will not be able to see him coming. Thomas had a surprise delivery for them. When they reached the new address of the tenants, Thomas started filming as the truck backed up in front of the driveway. People who were around started to stop and see what was about to happen. People watched in shock as the truck backed up and deposited all its contents right by the front door. All this time, Thomas was unable to hold back his smile and happiness as he continued to film the commotion. For Thomas, he believed that the only revenge he could give is to do to the couple what they had done to him. The couple trashed his apartment, and he was going to deliver back that trash to them. Thomas was a smart man. He made sure he thought ahead. Before the plan took place, he could confirm the legality of his actions so that he will not be in trouble with the law. The new tenants are accountable for it instead of the new landlord. Thomas explained that the pictures he had posted of the trashed apartment do not even fully capture the extent of the damages done to it. Everything needed serious repairs from the walls to the floor. The entire place had to be thoroughly disinfected. Thomas also went as far as talking to the authorities beforehand before laying out his plan. When it came to legal issues, the landlord had no fear because the law was by his side. For those wondering, Thomas was told later on that the couple was forced to deal with the mess themselves. Mission accomplished. Thomas believed that the revenge he made was justified. It had to be brutal because of the lack of respect, the rent that was never paid, plus the damages that had to be repaired. He had to spend a small fortune to clean and fix the apartment. The unique way that Thomas taught his tenants from hell a lesson was indeed a story that stood out and went viral. A lot of landlords from all over the world applauded his moves and related his struggles. Thomas was lucky in a way that the family moved out of their own accord because in America, getting rid of tenants is not that easy. Landlords started sharing their own horror stories about tenants they have had, and they were inspired by Thomas to take action. Now that the apartment is cleared and clean, we hope Thomas will be able to rent it out to a more decent tenant, and that he would not wait for about a year before he starts asking for rent this time.